still in campaign mode.
There you go. What's the next campaign?
There is no campaign on the schedule. But it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to get out of campaign mode. Well, I guess we'll get started here. So, my name is Jon Hobbs. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to talk about how you can create a legal monopoly on your business idea. I'm a local patent lawyer. I have an office in Sandy Springs, and I've been practicing patent law for a couple of decades now. I used to live in Japan. I lived in Japan for more than a decade and practiced patent law, helping Japanese companies do outbound work in the US. So when they come up with a new product or process and they want to enter the US market, they would talk to somebody like me and I would file their patent work in the US. So I did that for a long time. And then I moved back to the US and I've been in Georgia for 5 years now and started my office 3 years ago. So, and I want to keep this talk more of an open kind of conversation. I mean, it's just a small group here, so you guys have the opportunity to ask any questions for free. Anytime, just raise your hand. So, my office is up in Sandy Springs. I'm in the Synergy Law Building, if you know where that's at, if you're local. So here's an overview of the talk. So, we'll talk a little bit about the history of patent law, the how, the requirements for a patent, the what, the things you can patent, the why, the reasons why you should patent, and probably for many of you, the most important, the when. So the timing for applying for a patent. So the Constitution actually framed the beginnings of patent law. Of course, it's evolved quite a bit since then, but Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, Congress allowed for the protection of your ideas. And the first patent was submitted not long after, actually, and it was for a new type of fertilizer. So the first patent that was ever applied for was for fertilizer. So patent law is unique in that it has nothing to do with the states. The federal government administers patent law, and the reason why is because patents have no borders, basically. I'm applying for a patent in Qatar right now. They don't have an extremely complex legal system in Qatar, but they do have a patent system. And you can get a patent there. It's pretty amazing, you know. So there's no borders, and when you think about it, what a lot of manufacturers here face are counterfeit products coming from China, and the federal government needs to be able to administer patent law so they can shut down that stuff at the border. So there's approximately US businesses lose $200 billion annually to counterfeits. So if you're a small business and you come up with a great idea, you want to definitely you want to file a patent, because I can't tell you how many times people call me and they say, I put my product on the Amazon store and now there's 15 other people selling my product on Amazon. What can I do? And I tell them you're screwed. Sorry, because we'll talk about it later. But a sale, if you put something up for sale on Amazon, you're automatically barred from getting a patent. And the reasons become clear a little later in the talk. Okay, so what are these patents? What are they? What do they do? What are you getting them for? So there's actually 3 types of patents. Probably people don't even know this, but there's a utility patent is what probably everyone's familiar with. That protects the idea of something. So if you're making a new widget, you know, your widget is a toilet paper holder, that's a utility patent. You're improving something. It's a product, improvement of a product. There are design patents. So often I apply for design patents for a website. So you can patent the ornamental features of your website. But people don't know that. But if you had a unique, you know, the big companies like Yahoo, they all apply for design patents for their websites. And yeah, you can, that's something actionable. You can bring an infringement lawsuit against somebody for your design. And plant patents. Plant patents are the most rare variety, but when you think about like the seed manufacturers, they're creating different varieties of plants, and they're getting patents on those. So the how. What are the requirements under the law for getting a patent? So it must be new, useful, and non-obvious. Now, new and useful is pretty clear, right? And these are covered under United States Code Title 35. Non-obvious is not so clear. So let me explain. So if you came up with an idea of a new hammer, but the hammer you're still using that hammer to hammer in a nail, right? What you're going to face when you apply for that patent with the patent office is a non-obvious rejection. So they're going to say, you know, the judge, when I submit that to the judge is going to say, well, this was obvious. This thing is, you know, you're just using this hammer to hammer in nails. And then it's my job to go in and explain to the judge, this is what's not obvious. So that's the non-obvious component. These three things you have to surpass in order to be able to be granted a patent. So the what? The three things that can be monopolized. So products, you probably, I don't know if, has any of you ever looked at the bottom of your Starbucks cup? No? It's patented. There's a patent number on the bottom of that Starbucks cup. Now you go back and you think, well, how in the world did they get a patent on that? You know, it's a cup. You know, the cups have been around forever. Well, some lawyers figured out a way to get a patent on it. So that's part of the reason why, you know, you should have counsel, because they're going to be able to get you that patent. So any product, even AI software. So a lot of people right now, they're focused on, you know, they've got the latest, greatest idea for artificial intelligence, and they're writing some software, and you know, they call me and they explain, you know, what they're doing with the software, and software is patentable. So as long as you're improving the computer itself, and there's many ways you can demonstrate that. So you can demonstrate that to the judge by showing that your model, if you're writing an AI, some AI model, your model has improved the way the computer processes things. So less drain on resources. You can go through like process application and show that your model is not taking up as many CPU cycles per se as other ones. So there's efficiency gains, or your model uses less storage. So there's many different ways that you can get patents on AI, and it is a product. Appliance, anything really, any type of product, car parts, seat belts, anything. I've worked on seatbelt stuff for Toyota for many years. Not the most exciting area of work, but so product to process. So I have a client, a local client, and it's a dessert company. Now most people wouldn't think, dessert companies want to get patents, but I've applied for a bunch. He's got a bunch of new processes. He was a startup, a guy that just started in his garage, started making desserts, and just had a completely different view of how these things, how to do this, and ordered his equipment, got sales, ordered his equipment, and had custom equipment made, and he wanted patents on those processes of how he's making the desserts. That's patentable. It is a process. But when we think about process, process is also a process of software doing something. So when I write software patents, I'm usually almost always writing a process claim. So how that software processes data. So there's going to be a process in that patent as well. And the third, it has to be a composition of matter. So the three things that you're allowed by law to patent are product, process, and composition of matter. And composition of matter here locally, we've got Toyo Tires. Those guys are making tons and tons of tires, and the composition of those tires change all the time. The formulations change, the process, the making, the vulcanization process, the compositions of the rubber, all that stuff's changing all the time. So I don't know if we have any pharmaceutical companies locally, do we? But if pharmaceuticals is a huge area, right? That's a huge. I don't do any pharmaceutical stuff, but drug compositions, that's composition of matter. Okay, things that cannot be monopolized. So, laws of nature. So, a natural phenomenon, physical phenomenon. The correlation, so this was a famous case, but the correlation between red blood cell count and disease. So there was a big discovery in medicine, and these guys tried to patent this, but it's not actually, there's no invention there, right? They're just looking at the correlation between these two things. So they tried to get a patent on, they couldn't. So new mineral, right? What if you found a new mineral? Could you patent it? No, because that already existed in nature. And the founders didn't want us to prevent people from, basic utilizing things from nature, right? So abstract ideas are not patentable. So mathematical algorithms, anything organizing human activity as well, and mental processes. So mental processes, for example, if you can carry out a calculation on the back of a napkin, or you can do something in your head, it's not patentable. So, and it's considered an abstract. It's considered solving an abstract idea problem. So you're not allowed to get patents on mental processes, things that can be calculated in your head. It must be solely based on the computer. And so the last one here, others, perpetual motion machines and atomic weapons. So you cannot get patents on atomic weapons. So, questions. Anybody have questions on that? What is patentable and what is not patentable?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm
Potentially. So there has to be something new, useful, non-obvious there. So if you're just doing an API call, no, but there may be something there.
Like a software as a service, and it's providing a service, and users are paying for it. So let's say an app is already out, we have a competitor, right? But then you make it more expansive, the product. Like, would that be, for more context, does that make sense?
It makes sense. Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah, it just depends. So, yeah, as long as it meets the new, useful, and non-obvious requirements. But what we have to do, and I have to show, we have to show some technical improvement. That's the key. So if you can show that the way your system operates is more efficient than some other system, then that's a technical improvement. And then we have to just show them exactly how it's carried out, how that technical improvement should be.
How do you go about researching then what patents exist? I mean, I'm sure there's like a whole wide database and everything, but how do you get into like all the specific details to compare and contrast how it's different versus what's already there?
Yeah, so that's a tough job, actually. So what I advise people to do, it depends on what the idea is, what the invention is, because my knowledge is limited. I've done a lot of work in the software space, but it doesn't mean that I know what exists in bicycle tire space. That's so if it's within the software realm and I kind of have an idea, because I work in that area a lot, then I'll know where to search for prior art, and I'll probably be able to give you pretty good advice. If not, then I'll suggest, if it is a crowded area where there's a lot of patents, I'll suggest that you do a prior art search with me, and then I'll spend hours going through all the major patent databases. So the USPTO patent database, WIPO patent database, Google patent database, which are pretty extensive. And I have a lot of small companies that are my clients. They're single person LLC or something, so they want to try to save as much money as possible. So it depends on the budget, but I think it's always better to do the prior art search. So if I find something, then you don't spend the money on the patent, right? And I can just show you, here's what's going to prevent you from getting this patent, and you don't spend the money on the patent, because patenting is not for the faint at heart. It's a 2-year process. Over that 2 years, we're going to spend about 10 grand. So it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not cheap. But as you'll see, it's worth it. It's worth it. So here's the why. Here's the why you want a patent. So just the success rate, and I'm not going to say that companies succeed because they have patents. No, they don't. They succeed because they have good leadership. And the good leadership usually has their ducks in a row. Those are the guys that come to me and they say, "Oh, yep, we got this. We're going to do this. We need a patent." They come to me early in the process, and they're focused, and they do everything by the numbers. So a patent typically, and then these statistics come come from PitchBook. I don't know if you're familiar with PitchBook, but PitchBook is part of Y Combinator out in California, and they fund all these startups. So these are their statistics, not stuff I just made up. You can look them up. So typically, if a company has at least one patent, they 10x their raise from investors and venture capital. It instantly adds $360,000 because the average sale price of a U.S. patent is $360,000. So when you go for evaluation, you know, the investors are going to look at, okay, what are these guys doing? Have they even asked the question, you know? And have they looked into getting a patent? And if they do, you know, if you have applied for a patent, you get a patent, you'll get a valuation of $360,000 from it. So you'll be able to defend your ideas, right? So you can bring infringement lawsuits against somebody, and you can also license your patents. So typically you could get, it'll generate royalties in 6 to 9% of sales revenue. So the win, and it really matters. So as I mentioned before, if you made that product and then you put it on Amazon, you're barred. You can't get a patent because it's not new, right? Remember the 3 requirements at the beginning? It has to be new, useful, and non-obvious. So if you've already put it out there and it's on display and it's public, it's not new. So typically, I mean, really, if before you even start coding anything, you know? Okay, sure.
So you said Amazon, does that include also like the Apple Store? After it's on the Apple Store, you can no longer apply for a patent?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
yeah, yeah.
And how long does it normally take for it to be patented? I know it varies.
So you can sell as soon as you apply. So you don't have to wait till it's patented. So as soon as you apply for the patent and it's pending, then you can sell. So as soon as the patent's out there and it's pending, you have protection. Hopefully at the ideation stage, the founders will come to me and say, hey, you know, this is the idea. Can we get a patent on it? And we can talk that through. So publications are statutory bar. So a lot of the university researchers, they're doing research and they're working on these groundbreaking ideas. And then as soon as they publish that in a journal, that's done. They can't protect it. So presentations also statutory bar. And provisionals. So there are 2 types of utility patents, a provisional and a non-provisional. The provisional is a placeholder. So it's basically more of the ideation stage. It's not a full patent and it's cheaper. So when you apply for a provisional, it gives you a placeholder. You have 1 year to then apply for the full non-provisional patent. So if you don't have, like your full ideas cooked up yet, and you don't want to, you're not sure if you want to do the full patent, then apply for the non-provisional, or apply for the provisional, and you get the protection, and you get a year. So, okay, so now you guys are experts in patent law, and I have, I want to do a little brainstorming session. So what's a good problem for AI to solve that is patentable? Any ideas?
Maybe the deviation from one product to another.
Yeah. So, in fact, the patent office produced. So they produce guides for us, for the people practicing patent law. And one of the examples of an AI patent was